Personally, I've been targeted by that. I've been targeted by law enforcement. I've been targeted by the sheriff. I've been targeted by the prosecutor. And I've been targeted by the Department of Justice. But am I going to stop? No. Are you going to stop?
No.
Are you going to stop?
No.
Are you going to stop?
No.
Are you going to stop?
No.
None of us are going to stop. We're going to keep on moving forward, and we're going to make this, we're going to get Maru free. We're going to stop our children from being deported. We're going to get them back to being with their parents, and we're going to make this place back to being with the people, or
That's
if it
right.
ever was, but we're going to keep it. We're going to take it back.
We're taking
Thank you, Michelle.
decolonize.
Michelle, you are not alone. Maru is not alone.
We are not alone.
When our community is under attack, what do?
Stand up, fight back.
When immigrants are under attack, what do?
Stand up, fight back.
When immigrants are under attack, what do?
Stand up, fight
When our
back.
community is under attack, what do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do?
Stand up, fight back.
Hey!
Hey.
So we're gonna pass it on over to Junga to continue to talk to us about what this racial profiling looks like, and what are particular local examples that you all can go to and support.
Great, thank you. My name is Junga Subadar, and I'm an attorney with the Wacom Civil Rights Project in Bellingham, Washington, with my sister Michelle up there. Wacom County is about 25 minutes approximately from the northern border. And I stand here today in front of you, not just as an attorney, but also as a child from an immigrant family, from a mother who had to come to this country because of war and imperialism, and in large part to the US military.
Yeah.
So we know that children and women suffer the most under those circumstances, but there's more to that. The US immigration policy and the tactics of ICE are inherently racist, and they practice racial profiling. We see that in our communities. We see that from the actions that ICE have taken on the streets. We've seen that in our own community up in Bellingham, where in 2015, there was a 15-year-old Latino youth that was pulled over for a minor traffic incident by Bellingham Police Department, who then called Customs and Border Patrol, who detained him down in Tacoma, south of us, for almost a day without his family knowing where he was. He was racially profiled initially. So that there is a collaboration that goes on between our local law enforcement and with ICE. That's why these struggles are also connected. There's a pipeline that starts from a stop, a traffic stop even, an arrest to deportation. That's racial profiling. And we see that the immigration policies of the US have never been not racist, have always been racially
racist.
discriminatory
They've always been racist.
and white supremacist. We have documentation now that show that the vast majority of the Mexican nationals that come to the US border are denied asylum. And then the one person that they did allow that didn't even have evidence or reason for credible fear or asylum status was a white Canadian. We see communities of color, black and brown people targeted on the streets. These immigration policies are a long legacy of discrimination and racism. And the racial profiling that goes on in our communities haven't stopped.
It's not going to stop.
So I stand here today as that being a basis for abolishing ICE.
Yes.
Abolish! Abolish!
ICE.
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 Abolish! Maru can hear us. Hands up, Maru! 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 Y'all sound beautiful. Beautiful. Woo! So we're gonna hand it off to our last judge. Our last judge is gonna share a little bit about who's profiting off of this, right? And who owns this building and who is leasing to ICE and to these agencies, right? And then they're gonna go on a little break because Megan out here from Resistencia has been taking notes, and they're gonna go check it out, come up with a decision. They're gonna come out, share their decision, and also I know that there's another there's a march happening, but I want to say that we're planning on joining that march at 1:45. So if you're planning on being there, stick around. We're all gonna go together and make sure that we join them. So we're gonna pass it on to our last judge of the day, Chandan Reddy, who's gonna talk to us about where we are and the petitions that are gonna be delivered.
How's everyone doing? Let's repeat it one more time. Hands off Maru!
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 Right on. All right, so we're here today because the People's Tribunal has been asked to consider a judgment against all public-private partnerships with ICE. This has come to the tribunal's attention in part because the United States has led a long history of businesses profiting off of the racialized dehumanization of non-Western peoples. The first public-private partnerships on immigration for profit are the U.S. involvement in the slave trade.
Yes!
During the slave trade, the United States private corporations and businesses built the ships in the northern part of the United States that picked up enslaved people from Africa and sent them to the South for a horrible form of enslaved labor and work till death regimes.
500 years, yes.
Even after the abolition of the slave trade in the United States, U.S. businesses continued to profit from and try to sneak enslaved people into the United States through their ships. When those ships were finally prevented from docking, they moved their slave ships to Asia to pick up Chinese and Indian migrants to replace enslaved labor in the Caribbean plantations. Without the People's Tribunal, there is evidence that U.S. businesses will continue to try to profit from the dehumanized racialization of non-Western people and the traffic in human life for American corporate profits. Our current moment starts in 1882 when we start to see the first detention centers being built by the federal government. It's important to remember that when white Europeans were coming here and breaking treaties with indigenous people, none of them were being put into immigration jails. But when Asian immigrants came, we started to see the construction for the first time of detention centers, federal detention centers. So we see how racialized these public-private collaborations are. The first private jails came in 1984 with CoreCivic. CoreCivic and the GEO Group together are the largest private detention prison companies in the United States currently. There is a $2 billion industry currently in the detention of human life for administrative purposes.
Yes.
Core Civic made in 2014, for example, $195 million in detaining human life. In the same period, Geo Group, which currently operates the Northwest Detention Center, made profits that jumped from $42 million to, in a single year, $144 million. Core Civic, Geo Group, and Management and Training Corporation together constitute 96% of all of the private beds of detention. We cannot trust as well the larger growing industry in what is called alternatives to detention, which are, for example, the use of ankle monitoring, the use of foster care systems and foster providers. These so-called alternatives to detention are now having an explosive growth in their industry, going from $72 million in 1 year to $111.6 million in the year after.
They've been practicing.
Even the building that we are in is owned by the private business and real estate entrepreneur Martin Selig, who, among other things, was the private entrepreneur who brought Donald J. Trump to Seattle for his campaign.
Disgusting.
Selig headquarters his own company here in this building, as well as offering space to ICE. Turning ICE is, if we think of ICE as Trump's private police, they are also now Martin Selig's private police.
Yes, they are. Privilege.
We will no longer allow public-private partnerships that are predicated on the racialized dehumanization of black and brown peoples to go on any further.
Black Lives Matter.
Shut it down!
Shut it down.
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 All right, y'all. So we're gonna give time for our judges to meet up with Megan. They're gonna review a little bit of the notes of what's happening. And so in the meanwhile, I wanted to again just let you all know that there's a couple of local actions that Resistencia and a lot of the folks that are here at this table are a part of, and that if you're not already plugged in, we waiting on you.
That's right.
All right. So one of them particularly, who's been part of the efforts of the No New Youth Jail? Who's out here? Let's see. All right. So if you're not a part of that, plug in.
Plug in.
If you've not shown up yet in front of the Northwest Detention Center,
Plug in.
plug in. We're waiting on you in Tacoma. The other piece of this is that also, who has not yet attended a check-in with a fellow community member that's coming into this building? If you've not yet, we're waiting on you. We have a compañero Fidel whose check-in is coming up next month, July 10th. And so if you're available on July 10th and you're able to be here, and just like you're showing up for Maru, you gotta show up for Fidel.
Yep.
And if you're interested in that, we ask for you to connect with folks from Resistencia. Resistencia folks, can you raise your hand so people can see you? Resistencia, out here, out here, out here. So if you wanna come out and support Fidel in his upcoming check-in, July 10th, please do that. We're waiting on you. And then the last piece, another piece again, is the efforts to continue to evict ICE out of this building, right? We don't want anyone to rent from them. So again, if you want to be part of those efforts, if you haven't yet signed a petition and you still want to be a part of that, we're waiting on you. Plug in. And like I said, we're going to join the march in just a bit as soon as we hear back from the judges.